Ryan Condal, why are you trying to gaslight us? Why? Listen, it may seem that I am harsher on House of the Dragon writers and showrunners than on any of the other producers and writers in Hollywood these days, but sorry not sorry, HBO has established itself as this golden standard for television these days. Prestigious television. And so I'm gonna hold them to that. I'm sorry, but you're not gonna gaslight us with this one. Because Ryan Condal, the showrunner of House of the Dragon, this is what he said. It was disappointing. I will simply say I've been a fan of A Song of Ice and Fire for almost 25 years now. And working on the show has been truly one of the great privileges of not only my career as a writer, but my life as a fan of science fiction and fantasy. George himself is a monument. Yes, he is. Sorry, Ryan. A literary icon, in addition to a personal hero of mine, and was heavily influential on me coming up as a writer. In regards to Fire and Blood not being a traditional novel, he said, "It's this incomplete history, and it requires a lot of joining of the dots and a lot of invention as you go along the way. I will simply say I made every effort to include George in the adaptation process. I really did, over years and years, and we really enjoyed a mutually fruitful, I thought, really strong collaboration for a long time. But at some point, as we got deeper down the road, he just became unwilling to acknowledge the practical issues at hand in a reasonable way." Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about that one, but let's finish it first. And I think as a showrunner, I have to keep my practical producer hat on and my creative writer, lover of the material hat on at the same time. At the end of the day, I just have to keep marching on, marching not only the writing process forward, but also the practical parts of the process forward for the sake of the crew, the cast, and for HBO, because that's my job. So I can only hope that George and I can rediscover that harmony someday. But that's what I have to say about it. Oh, I have multiple things to say about this, but most of them would get me banned on YouTube or sent to an insane asylum, because contrary to what Ryan Condal may believe, some of us actually know how productions work. And while, it's a perfect argument for the purpose of gaslighting the masses, that you have to cut the material for practical reasons, because it's a show, it's an adaptation, it's for the screen, it's not the book. Sure. That's all true, but there's nothing practical about the choices you made in season 2. If anything, they were anything but practical, and I'm gonna list them in a second. But first of all, Ryan, why are you in the business of telling stories in the first place? If you can't take any ounce of criticism to heart, and instead you have to go on this ego trip of, "Oh, look at me, I'm the big producer. I know better than all of you. All of you need to shut up," including the author of the source material. I know better. I personally believe George was very poignant and respectful in his criticism. It wasn't in any way an attack on Ryan and the crew and writers of House of the Dragon TV show. It was just an explanation of how if you destroy one part of the lore of the story, whole thing collapses and it makes no sense. And I know George is much more concerned with the problem of dragons than he's of the interpersonal conflict between the characters. I believe each of those problems are equally as important for the show to move forward in any way. So I am extremely worried about season 3, to say the least. If anything, after these comments, I would say it is doomed to fail, unfortunately. This is not something I will be looking forward to, because I can see writing on the wall, and George does too. So I believe George was very respectful in his criticism. He was only agreeing with the fans, with the conversation that was happening online about season 2, and probably throughout the production of season 2, George came to you, Ryan, with these concerns over and over again, and you didn't listen because you thought your version was more interesting, maybe. And the end result was a season that gave us nothing. It didn't move the story forward. If anything, it tore it apart. It destroyed the core of the conflict of this story. I think apart from the battle between dragons in episode 4, which was shot in a spectacular way, season 2 gave us nothing except for maybe newfound admiration for Aegon, which is like, okay, good job, I guess, for turning that around, because in season 1 he was portrayed as a full, irredeemable rapist and child sadist. So, I guess. But I won't give you too much credit because that's mostly down to a very good acting by Tom Glyn Kearney and the fact that he is a very charismatic and charming actor. So what else did we get from season 2? Nothing but a bloated, circular stalling for the action that never comes. And, that's when you are in trouble, because Game of Thrones was at its best in the moments between the characters, when they were slowly developing the conflicts and the relationships and the magic of Martin's world. So why are you going after Martin, even though all of the fans agree with him? I don't understand, especially on the first day of production of season 3. It makes no sense. You're basically dooming this project. Did some notes here. Let's just list. You say you want to change things for the practical reasons. Okay, let's just list all of those practical reasons. Practical changes. Let's see. Is it practical to add numerous scenes of Alicent in various locations in different costumes all the time where she does nothing? Is it practical to add a dragon in the Vale? Is it practical to expand Miss Zarya's role when you have Jace right there? Is it practical to add multiple actors and special effects to the visions in Harrenhal? Actually, I'm not complaining about that one because those were my favorite scenes of season 2. None of those changes were practical, okay? Let me tell you what would have been practical. Changing a few lines of dialogue in Blood and Cheese. Same location, same actors, same time for shooting. You just let them say what they say in the books. It changes the scene entirely. What else would have been practical? Actually utilizing Jace in this season. Because we all know what you were intending to end season 2 with, which you didn't because of those practical changes, because of the budget cuts. You had to postpone the scene to first episode of season 3, and now it won't make sense. Jace should have been Rhaenyra's most trusted advisor in this season. I'm just gonna give it to you straight. No one gives a fuck about Miss Arya, okay? No one likes her. No one cares about her. I know you really wanted that lesbian kiss. No one has a problem with queer themes in the story because they are already there in the text. Okay? They are already there in the source material. Daemon, Laenor, Laena, and Rhaenyra were living in sort of a throuple anyway in the books. You didn't show that in season 1. I understand entirely. You didn't have the time. Practical reasons, of course. But then why add her romance with Miss Arya when Miss Arya is not the character that you would want Rhaenyra to be paired up with, nor is Alicent. Okay, so you made changes to the relationships between characters that are involved in the conflict and that are a driving force for this conflict to be working in the future. You changed how the dragons work. Okay, I mean, Martin is more upset about this one. I understand he is very particular about his magic system. I still think this one can work somewhat if if Laenor has died somewhere off. And that's why Sea Smoke was able to bond with another writer. And, we're merging two characters together with, I don't even remember their names, etc. All of the other dragon problems. But yeah, you can't fix relationships. And the amount of nurturing you gave to a certain characters on screen, because this is going to lead to the biggest problem you're going to have with season 3. In order to fully discuss this, I'm going to be giving you spoilers. So if you don't want to, you can skip to the timestamp I'm going to provide below. And yeah, so now you have your chance in 3, 2, 1. Jace. Jace is the biggest problem for episode 1 of season 3 because at its core, House of the Dragon is about a family conflict, right? House of the Dragon destroying itself from within. The only thing that can destroy a dragon is himself. In order for it to work on an emotional level and to be actually heartbreaking, that this family is basically tearing itself apart, you have to actually stay with the family. You have to nurture those relationships. You have to know these characters like no one else. As of season 2, Alicent doesn't give a fuck about her family. Apparently, none of them. She basically gives the victory to Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra doesn't fully trust Daemon. Her and Jace's relationship is very minimal. Jace is always sort of there, but he's pretty much a window dressing at this point to all the lesbian kisses. He doesn't have a personality also, so we don't really know what kind of character Jace is. Aegon, Aemond, Helena, they don't trust each other at all. If anything, they are all against each other. Honestly, unwatchable at this point. So that's the clusterfuck you've created at the end of season 2. It's actually impressive how much damage you were able to do to this story with just 8 episodes. Good job, I guess. And Jace, I keep going back to Jace because what happens? What was supposed to happen at the end of season 2? Jace was supposed to die heroically in the biggest battle of the Gulf, okay? Now, to all of the people saying, oh, you just hated season 2 because it didn't have a proper ending. No, this ending would have killed the show. Everyone would be like, what? And why didn't we spend enough time with this character if he's supposed to be killed off? Remember how Ned Stark died? It only made so much impact because we were with him throughout the whole season. We knew his character inside and out. That's why his sacrifice and his loss was so overwhelming to the story moving forward. Jace was supposed to be a similar death for Rhaenyra, but because they made some changes and didn't show him at all in this season, his death at the end of season 2 would have been a letdown, to put it mildly. Now, his death at the beginning of season 3, zero impact on the story, on the viewers. You know, remember how we were telling all of the people who haven't read the books about Blood and Cheese? We were like, yeah, get ready. This is going to be bigger and more heartbreaking than Red Wedding. We all know how that turned out. So the same thing is going to happen with Jace. He was sacrificed at the altar of let's make changes to put a more feminist spin on this story, which is actually bonkers because this does not make this story more feminist. You know, I enjoy feminist retellings, but this is not it, because this story was already with those themes to begin with. If anything, you are making a case that women are only interesting when they are victims of men. That's an interesting hill to die on. I don't even know what to say to that. And with that, we arrive at the second problem that season 3 faces, which is yes, you guessed it, the Alicent problem. The Alicent that they didn't know what to do with in season 2 because of the changes they made at the end of season 1. Well, not really. I think season 1 changes were actually thoughtful. Stay with me there. Stay with me. You know, changing the ages to Rhaenyra and Alicent, making them friends. All of those themes could have been really interesting and make this story more complex, more heartbreaking in the end. You know, the best friends from childhood fractured by this conflict and each of them like defending their own. That would have been spectacular. I'm sorry. It would have been honestly a better story than just a wicked stepmother hating on a stepdaughter. But they are determined to sanctify both Rhaenyra and Alicent. And I think you could get away with one. You could have made a case for Rhaenyra being the righteous queen up until a certain point. But you can't do both in order for this story to make sense. You just can't, because all of these themes are canceling each other out. You know, this conflict at this point doesn't make any sense. You know, they've killed each other's children at this point, and they are still loving each other. Oh, okay. And Alicent is just giving her whole family on a platter to Rhaenyra at the end of season 2. You are also giving away a big plot point of season 3, taking away all the suspense, all of the mystery out of the story. So you've basically killed season 3 on arrival there. And now with your comments, Ryan, I am sure that you haven't taken any criticism to heart and you're not going to try to rectify this. You're just going to keep going in this direction. Now, where are we going with this? This is the question, my question. Because Alicent is no longer part of this conflict. So what are we going to do with her? Like, she's gonna have even more meaningless scenes in season 3 than she had in season 2. Like, at this point, you might as well kill her off because she doesn't have anything to do in this story anymore. Rhaenyra, I hate to say it, but a horrible leader. I don't trust her as the leader anymore. I might go along with this. I will see how you get out of it. But even if we're aiming for a feminist retelling of this, does it mean that you're changing the ending of the story? Because you're hoping that you're gonna reconnect with George R.R. Martin and he's gonna have a fruitful collaboration with you again, but he's not gonna be happy with you changing the ending. Moreover, you can't change the ending if you want to keep the continuity with Game of Thrones show. Maybe you want both of those to be completely separate. I don't know. But ending of House of the Dragon is already spoiled in Game of Thrones. One of the scenes with Joffrey, he tells you basically what happens. So don't rewatch season 4 of Game of Thrones if you don't want to spoil House of the Dragon for yourself. But then what are we doing here? Because want to change the ending, that's not gonna go over well with George and with majority of the fans of the books. Now, if you want to keep this ending, then that's not gonna go over well with all the fans you're trying to win over with this feminist vision for this. So, like, what's the end goal? Where are we going with this? My advice to you, Ryan, would be to just tell a good story that was already written. To all the arguments that, you know, it's a source material, it's a book, you have to be practical about transporting it onto a screen. Sure, but this is not a regular novel that has 1,000 inside thoughts from the characters or side quests or, I don't know, relationships that are irrelevant to the plot. This is a history book, okay? So you basically have bullet points of what happens one after another. I'm sorry, but you have 4 seasons of almost 10 hours of television. You're not squeezing it into 2 hours of a film. So what the hell are you talking about? There's more than enough time to adapt all of it. I loved the changes you made to season 1, contrary to some of the fans. I loved, making Rhaenyra and Alicent friends. I loved also, how it was progressing. It was this flow. We had all of this time to really get to know the backstory of this conflict. But in season 2, no time for backstories. No time for Mizaria's origin story. No one cares. Okay? This is a time to show how Rhaenyra is training Jace to be a leader. This is a time to show how Rhaenyra and Daemon love each other. This is a time to show how Alicent is caring about her children and how she wants to protect them no matter what. This is the time to show what Otto is doing off somewhere. This is the time to use another brother whom you're going to introduce in season 3, and no one will remember he even exists because you mentioned him in one scene, okay? And everyone's going to be like confused. Who is this character? Why is he here? Why is he a brother to Aegon and Aemond? Why wasn't he there if they were under attack? And if Aegon was king, why wasn't he there to help them? All those questions are gonna arise in season 3. And at this point, I have no faith that you actually understand these characters. So what are you gonna do with season 3? I'm kind of anxious to see. My prediction for it is it's gonna be, unfortunately, one of the biggest letdowns of modern television. Maybe let's not make that prediction because we still don't know where we are with Harry Potter TV show. Like, I promise you guys, I'm biting my tongue with, all of the things I have to say about new Narnia and Harry Potter adaptations. I don't know. I think episode 1 is gonna be a letdown. It's not gonna go over in a way that they would like to. It's gonna be like a conversation and a few sad memes on Twitter for a day, but it's not gonna have an impact of Red Wedding or Ned Stark's execution. It's gonna be like, meh, okay. And then the rest of the season is not gonna be a surprise at all. It's gonna be checking off boxes of the story that we already know how it's going to play out in this season. Going into season 4, I'm curious to see what they will decide about the ending. Like, are you going to stick with this version? Because we all know how both of these choices will turn out, and it's not well for you. And that isn't a threat, it's just the truth. Because obviously I have no stake in a game. I'm recording this in my own apartment. I'm just a huge fan of the books, and I studied cinema in college. So there you have it. I really don't want to turn into one of those channels that just shits on every decision Hollywood makes. But honestly, there's not much else we can talk about in terms of cinema and television lately. So let's take a second of silence for House of the Dragon TV show. Jeez, it was such a perfect casting. My God. And the actors they added to season 3, top tier. But yeah, disappointed. That's how I feel. Let me know, what would you like to hear about next? Maybe you're actually interested in my thoughts about Harry Potter and Narnia adaptations. If you think I'm crazy about House of the Dragon, you haven't seen Crazy yet, okay? This is all Harry Potter lore. So if they go through with this, I'm gonna have a very interesting time on YouTube, okay? You heard it here first. This is your go-to channel about all of the mistakes they're making in the new Harry Potter show. Let's see, okay? Let's see if some of you are interested. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you later.